It is Monday, guys, and listen, we are coming off an amazing weekend full of great college football games, and there's even a huge game tonight. Since this comes out on Monday, we'll give a brief prediction later on that one, but we have 3 segments today, kind of. The first one, we're going to kick it off by recapping the biggest games of the weekend that we covered for Pick 6. Then we're going to move on to our second segment. We are previewing and making our official Bluebloods predictions for the ACC, which kicks off this weekend. We wrap it up with a small, not really a segment, Brandon, I don't feel like we can call it, but just a small prediction and brief, preview of the BYU-Navy game tonight. And we're going to give our predictions for that. But listen, we have a full show today, guys, so let's go ahead and kick this off. So this weekend was our first complete weekend of Division I college football, and man, it did not fail to deliver some outstanding games. In case you weren't here a year ago when me and Brandon started this podcast, we have Pick 6, and we pick 6 of the best games, most important games of each weekend, and we make our predictions and break them down. Well, we always recap those 6 games, and we give you guys all the information you may have missed, you need, just to recap an exciting weekend of college football. So, Brandon, we're going to start here on Thursday night. We're going to start with the first game of the night, UAB against Central Arkansas. UAB pulled out the 45-35 win. Your takeaway from this game?
My takeaway from this game is that my gambling picks can't lose. Or, well, this one can't lose. Yeah, I gave you 3 on the last episode, and this is the only one that hit. For some reason, my dumb brain just said Central Arkansas is going to cover a 13.5-point spread against UAB, and they did. They lost by 10 points. And there were certain points in this game, and, games we're going to cover later on where, the team that really wasn't supposed to win just showed out and showed us that, we are just idiots is what we are. We don't know anything. If you're basing your opinions on the things we say on this show, let me go ahead and tell you that you should probably look somewhere else, like a different kind of show. We're not good at analyzing football, but we're here and we're fun. Anyway, I don't know. All this game really showed me is that these defenses were terrible. They were awful, both of them.
Yeah, I agree. Hey, Brandon, but about your gambling pick, a broken clock's always right twice a day, so you got this.
Yeah,
you at least be right sometimes.
Trust me, occasionally. So yeah.
Hey, if Pick 6 records aren't as good as last year, just give us a break. We'll year 3 of the Blue-Bloods will be better, but
it's hard to have such a good record every year, you know.
Yeah, we won over 80 games last year. It was like 80 and like 20 or 30 something. Dude, we did. It was fire last year.
I was like 80%. It was nuts.
It's insane. And we picked the big games. So you know what? Enough bragging on us. Let's brag on UAB and maybe in Central Arkansas. But, Brandon, this game for me, and we'll get to a few games later, we talked, I believe it was a few episodes ago, about how is the season going to look? Is it going to be a lot of upsets, or is it just going to be a bunch of sloppy play where teams got to get in the rhythm because they didn't practice? And I think the sloppy, rusty kind of upset version is going to be the thing that we see. Lack of practice, opt-outs, change of schedules looked like it really affected a lot of these favorites. And, you said defense wasn't great, but I don't think UAB's front 7 played that bad. They made Breland Smith, who, in my opinion, is weaker than that run game with Kier Crossley and all of them at Central Arkansas. They had 2 sacks. They held Crossley under 60 yards rushing. They did a great job of putting it on Breland Smith. And, this game was a lot closer than it should have been. UAB had 2 horrible turnovers late in the second half. It turned this game into a competitive game toward the end because UAB was running away with this, and Central Arkansas takes a fumble back for a touchdown and then scores on a 15-yard pass on the first play on another turnover. It was a 14-point swing in the final 2 minutes of the first half that made the score go from 28-7 to 28-21.
Dude, and UAB's, I don't know who their defensive coordinator is because it's UAB, but he was on this team because they didn't allow they didn't allow anything in the third quarter.
No, and they jumped out to 2 quick scores too. It was getting away from them, and then I believe they had a late turnover in the fourth that really put Central Arkansas in a good position. This game was more about UAB shooting themselves in the foot than I think it was Central Arkansas playing well.
It was.
I hate saying that, but UAB was the better team, and if those two turnovers don't happen late in the first half, I think UAB, this game is an absolute blowout, and UAB looks like they're going to be a really, really good team if they can clean up their play a little bit. And that's a big if. So, guys, UAB moves on to face Miami this Thursday night. That's a pretty big game, I would say. I mean, Miami's got a lot of new pieces, so we'll see how they fare there. But Central Arkansas has a week off, and then they go face an in-state opponent in Arkansas State on September 19th. But let's move on to the game. Everybody who knows me and Brandon is waiting to talk about. And listen, South Alabama at Southern Miss. South Alabama wins their first road game since 2017. They honestly, Brandon, I hate to say this, but they dominated Southern Miss 32-21.
Here's what I'll say. I'll say, first of all, I'm sorry. And second of all, if that touchdown where Frank Gore Jr. Pitched it back to Jack Abraham wasn't called back, the momentum change would have been it would not have, like, they would have been going to the half off that score. I mean, that's crazy. The team would have been hyped up. I'm not saying they would have won, but it wouldn't have been an 11-point game.
I'll give you that. But for that defense, man, who is Southern Miss's defensive coordinator, man? That was an abysmal performance. I don't think you could have written a worse script for that defensive coordinator and given it to him before the game.
No, it was awful. I mean, I even sent you a highlight where it was. I don't even know. I guess it was a low light where Southern Miss just didn't have anyone covering. I mean, there was one wideout on the left side of the field, and they had no one over there. They just loaded the box with like 10 men. It was nuts.
It's the same thing that Kentucky did to lose that Florida game back in, I think it was like 2018 or so. But we mentioned Desmond Trotter on the Audible last week. You can go check that on YouTube or just wherever you find the podcast. But I said he had to carry this team, and I said, I don't know if he had enough weapons. Well, boy, was I wrong. This kid was absolutely electric in this game. He had almost 300 yards passing, 2 touchdowns, 41 yards rushing. He did have some mistakes, which I said he was going to make, and 2 interceptions. He just consistently delivered big plays when needed most. And Jalen Tolbert, the wide receiver for South Alabama, he's going to be a problem down in Mobile, Alabama this year if this is signs for things to come. 6 receptions, 170 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Brandon, he was averaging 28 yards per reception. Yeah. I mean, it was nuts. Look, what I will say, though, is that Desmond Trotter, he is talented, and I'm not going to tear this kid down by any means, but he has to watch the turnovers. Those interceptions, that's the only reason Southern Miss was even kind of in this game. That's why I said dominate, man. I mean, the interceptions were more on Trotter, I feel like, than Southern Miss playing a good scheme. I don't think they weren't playing a good scheme at all. Like, if you throw an interception to Southern Miss, then you got to sit down and have a talk. Yeah, and Brandon, I mentioned this offensive line for Southern Miss and how it was going to be a problem, and I don't feel like I was wrong in the slightest. They went up against the South Alabama defensive line, which was ranked way outside any, I guess, highly ranked metric, only averaging 2.6 yards per rush attempt, and their leading rusher only had 32 yards. Yeah, and Jack Abraham had 28. I mean, that's the quarterback. Mm-hmm. What are you going to do? I don't know. And he's not even a scramble. He's not like a outside the pocket type of guy. That's just him trying to like run for his life. It was pretty bad. That's bad, but guys, no. What I will also say about that is that while he did have 28 yards, he had that one 35-yard run. The rest of he didn't even have 35 total yards because guess why? Because he kept getting sacked because this offensive line is just non-existent. Oh, man. Southern Miss looks to be in trouble. They're going to move on, face Louisiana Tech in 2 weeks on the 19th, while South Alabama moves on to face Tulane this upcoming weekend, in which a game I'm actually kind of interested to see. There, can South Alabama keep the momentum going against Tulane this upcoming weekend? But we're going to move on here. Third game that we covered. This one, we aren't going to spend almost any time on this game. nobody should have spent any more time than watched past the second quarter. Eastern Kentucky at Marshall, Brandon, a 59-0 shellacking of the poor Eastern Kentucky Division II team. I mean, this game didn't even have a spread, and I understand why.
Game time, it did.
Oh, did it? What was the spread?
23.
I'm saying it couldn't have been over 59, right? Like, I mean, listen, Grant Wells, that quarterback, listen, I know it's Eastern Kentucky, but he looked spectacular. The kid just was making throw after throw, 307 yards and 4 touchdowns, and I highlighted their offensive line on the audible. Almost 300 yards rushing behind them, over 5 yards per carry, and the Eastern Kentucky front seven had no answer for that offensive line, and I was actually really, really impressed with Marshall. We both expected them to win, but I don't think we expected 59-0.
No. I mean, I definitely did. I don't know. Actually, I did say that I would take a 1,000,000-point spread if they offered it, so I guess I'll claim that one. I'll claim that.
All right, fair enough. But listen, guys, Marshall moves on. They got Appalachian State on the 19th, a much tougher test than poor Eastern Kentucky, while Eastern Kentucky goes back to West Virginia to face West Virginia next Saturday. So it looks like they're not going to have a lot of fun in West Virginia. Eastern Kentucky, please stop scheduling these West Virginia teams because you're going to get shellacked next week as well. But we're going to move. We're going to move on to another massacre on the field. Middle Tennessee at Army, 42-0, Brandon. And listen, we both said we didn't think it was going to be a high-scoring game because Army was going to run the clock. But 42-0, I'm gonna say here, I did not see this coming.
I didn't either. What I will say is that the highlight of this game for me was that 12-minute drive by Army. It was like a
99-yard drive.
Dude, that was nuts.
19 plays, guys. 99 yards.
None. No passing.
And that was to go up 42-0. They didn't even have to do that. But they say, you know what? We're going to take up the entire quarter, go almost 20 plays for almost 100 yards. They couldn't have had a better drive than that.
It was great. No, it was fantastic.
But nothing says an Army game more so than that. I mean, Army was the better team from the jump. I mean, I don't think there was a player this weekend that disappointed me more than Asher O'Hara. We covered him a little bit on the audible. He came in as a pretty hype quarterback for, a Middle Tennessee State team. He got benched. He went for 46 yards and 2 interceptions with an average 3 yards of completion.
His QBR was 19.4.
I don't even know how he got that. If there ever should have been a 1 QBR, I feel like this was it.
He deserved a negative QBR. He failed in this department.
It's terrible. I mean, this Army defense who came into the year it was ranked very, very low, like we covered. They just kept making plays. I mean, they only allowed 184 yards. They forced 4 turnovers, had a touchdown, and held Middle Tennessee to 3 for 9 on third down conversions.
Yeah.
Outstanding. And listen, if Army can play defense like this along with that offense, which me and Brandon, I think everyone who listens expected this performance from the Army offense, Army's going to be a tough out this year, and we've seen them almost beat teams like they took Oklahoma to overtime 2-3 years ago when Oklahoma went to the playoffs. This Army team's no joke, and if they can smack teams 42-0. Oh, and Michigan last year, I forgot about that. Like they almost beat Michigan last year.
Yeah, I mean they're not like a great team, but they're a good team, dude. Yeah. If you had to guess right now, if you're not looking. How many players on Army's team ran the ball in this game? How many players are credited with any rush attempts?
I'm actually not looking, but I would have to say I'll go with 8.
10, and their leading rusher at 37 yards. I mean, to put that in perspective,
crazy.
They had 28 yards passing total. That's on 2 passes. And then they had 10 people rush, and the leading rusher had 37 yards. That's nuts. I mean, how do you do that?
Hey, the triple option, I don't know about you. I want the return of the triple option. I want a team like Oklahoma or Alabama or Clemson just to go to the triple option.
Right.
I need to see that.
Yeah.
I need to see it. I thought Nebraska was the last team that really made it like successful like in what was it 95 when they had Tommy Frazier.
I think
that was
Georgia
the last.
Tech was fairly successful with it. Like more.
Yeah, they didn't win a natty though. Like I'm talking about like a team. I'm talking about like a team to win like the natty with it. I think it was Nebraska in '95. But yeah, Georgia Tech has some success with it, but. We see what Georgia Tech is now. We'll get to them in just a second, but we saw what happened with Georgia Tech. But guys, Army moves on to take on Louisiana Monroe next weekend, while Middle Tennessee State has 2 weeks to think about what they did, and then they go into a matchup against Troy down in Alabama. So I'm imagining that game's probably not going to go any better for Middle Tennessee State if they play like this, but. We're going to move on to of the biggest games of the weekend. And arguably, I want to cover the game that was the best game by far this weekend. And you don't have to look any further than the gym that we had in San Marcos, Texas, Saturday afternoon. SMU at Texas State. SMU squeaked by with the 31-24 win. Brandon, before we get to SMU, how impressed were you with Texas State?
I really, really was. We talked them down so much. I don't want to say we disrespected them, but we kind of did. Did you think that they were going to put up this kind of fight against SMU?
No, I didn't.
I don't think SMU is a bad team. What I do think happened is that they came into this game thinking that they're playing Texas State, and they played like they were playing Texas State, and they barely scraped out a win.
Yeah, and there were some questionable calls there that really. That fumble recovery or so-called fumble recovery where Texas State recovers the fumble, the next play, SMU hits a deep post route for a touchdown to really kind of put the game away, take all the momentum away. And, Texas State, for Jake Spavital, who was offensive coordinator at A&M, he has this Texas State team playing tough, physical, aggressive football. And, I texted Brandon, I believe we were texting about the third quarter, and I was like, Texas State I think they might win this game. Like they look like the better team right now.
Yeah, and I was sad because the Clippers were losing. Zach was sad because the Celtics were done for, and we're just sitting here talking about Texas State about to win a football game against SMU, the team that we thought was back for sure.
Well, they were top 15 last year. Them in Memphis.
Yeah.
And I think at the re-rank, they're 26th in the country. They're like one spot out of the top 25. I don't imagine they're going to have that spot come. I don't know if they're doing the re-rank this week or not. I don't know if they're going to wait for conferences or just do them now because, no one in the top 25 played technically. So, but we'll see about that. But Shane Buechele, he looked rusty and overwhelmed, Brandon. When Texas State can throw blitz packages at you and you can't handle them, what are you going to do against a team like Cincinnati that I think has probably the best defense in the AAC? Yeah,
I definitely see where you're coming from there, saying that he did look rusty, but he still passed for almost 400 yards. Passed for 367 yards this weekend, and it's not like he threw a million passes. He threw 36, but he averaged 10 yards a pass. That's pretty good. Don't look at his touchdowns and interceptions because that's where you're going to start to lose people again. Because he had one touchdown and 2 interceptions on the game.
And the interceptions came in the worst spot. That one down it was fourth quarter, I believe, in the red zone, and they brought the middle linebacker straight up the middle, and he just threw it right at the Texas State defender. It hit the defender right in the chest. I was like, why don't you just take that sack or just fire it out the back of the end zone? You're at the 20-yard line. I know you have the arm to throw that out. Just throw it away.
Right. And it's bad when Zach and I both we took SMU in this game, and we're very serious about our picks on this show. But at one point, Zach texted me, is like, I know we chose them, but I think I want Texas State to win. I was like, I think I do too. What's going on? This game was it was out of hand.
It is. And, away from the passing game, as we expect that from SMU, I thought Calvin Hill and Brock Sturgis played an unbelievable game. The two running backs for SMU, I believe it was SMU. They had 100 yards rushing for 7.7 average, and Sturgis had 95 yards rushing for a 6.8 average.
Right. No, it was very impressive. And
that's outrageous.
It was very impressive. And while we're talking about impressive from Texas State, let's talk about that catch from Jeremiah Hadel. Goodness.
How about that, man? I want that to be our new logo.
Oh, I'm telling you that it was
contact him.
I saw it. I saw it in live time. I was like, I was like, oh, he overthrew him. Oh, man. Then I saw him come up with the ball. Like, there's no chance he caught that. And you know what? He did. It was insane.
That already could be the catch of the year. And I mean, I guess it's week one. We're calling it pick six for week one, but I mean, it's going to be so weird classifying these weeks. Cause like, can you call it week one when we didn't have a single Power 5 team play? But
we're about to have, it's like in a normal season where teams play before most others and they call it week 0. So this has to be like what? It's probably week -3. Week -3.
I'll call it like week 0 was last week. This is week 0.5. We'll get week 1 next week.
Yeah.
I mean, but SMU survives, guys. They move on to face North Texas on the 19th. Their game with TCU this week postponed because TCU had a COVID outbreak. Texas State heads to face in-state rival University of Texas San Antonio next Saturday. So I'm assuming they probably can get the win there. This team looks really, really good. And we got one more game to
look bad. Yeah, it's not a pick six, but they looked bad.
Yeah, that's not a great team. But last game, guys, and we're going to move on here. But Arkansas State at Memphis. Memphis pulled away late, 37-24 win for the Tigers there. Brandon, thoughts on this game?
Yet another scenario where I picked Memphis, and I was kind of rooting for Arkansas State because they were winning at the end of the first quarter. I was like, how is this happening right now? This doesn't seem right. Obviously Memphis pulled away a little bit later. They kind of dominated from the second quarter on. But the first quarter, I thought Arkansas State was I thought maybe they had it in them.
Yeah, I mean, but like I said earlier with UAB SMU, I mean, I think a trend where good teams are going to start out cold and struggle is going to be the case all across the country. And Memphis did come out very flat early. They found themselves down at the end of the first quarter, 14-7. But toward the end, Brandon, I don't think there was any question who the better team was. I mean, Brady White, spectacular down the stretch. He seemed to find his rhythm around the second quarter. 275 yards passing, 4 touchdowns, even had almost 40 yards rushing. And we mentioned them on the Audible. DeMonte Coxey, man, he showed up. And whoever this Sean Dykes kid is, wherever he came from, they were both too much for this Arkansas State secondary. And this duo is going to cause problems. Guys, Dykes, almost 140 yards receiving, 2 touchdowns. Coxey had 90, a touchdown. I think that, combination, Coxey, Dykes, and White, they are going to be a problem in the AAC in terms of, offensive potential. And I thought those 3 guys were really the stars of the game.
They were. And obviously they've got Brady White passing to them. But I don't know. At some point, Brady White can do so much, and he looked great this weekend. That's not a knock on him by any stretch, but I don't know. They did look incredible, and I think that they're very useful weapons for potentially the best quarterback in the AAC this season.
Yeah, and I would argue that Memphis looked better against an Arkansas State team who I think is fundamentally a better team than Texas State. I thought they looked much better than SMU did overall as an entire team. Yeah,
like you said, the last game was by far the best game of the weekend. This one I thought was going to be the same way, but it obviously, Arkansas State's not going to put up much of a fight against Memphis.
No, and we're getting ready to move on. I just want to mention one last player, Rodriguez Clark. I thought he did a great job replacing Kenneth Gainwell. That running back spot was empty. We didn't know who was going to take over that spot. I thought he did an excellent job of taking pressure off of Brady White and the staple of talented wide receivers. He had over 100 yards rushing, a touchdown. If he continues this trend, I don't think Memphis is going to miss Gainwell, but I think it's going to ease the pain of losing Gainwell for this team, because I thought Clark did an absolute amazing job at replacing Gainwell, who I think arguably could have been one of the most explosive players in the country this year.
Yeah, I agree. He came in, he did his job. He got over 5 yards to carry. That's what more can you ask out of this guy?
And so guys, Memphis moves on to face Houston in 2 weeks in a in-conference game. Arkansas State comes up here and visits your boy up in Kansas State this weekend. See if they can pull off the upset. Maybe not. If I can find some tickets, I might try to go to this game, but I don't even know how that's going to work with COVID. I don't know if my job's going to let me go into football games, but screw it. College football comes over making money. Ain't that right, Brandon?
That's right.
But we're going to move on here, guys. This is going to be the bulk of the episode. Power 5 football returns this weekend, and it's finally time to make predictions. Me and Brandon last year, we started this podcast a little bit late. We only got to make predictions for, I believe, the Big Ten and the SEC. This year, we're doing it big. We're making official Blue Bloods for predictions for all Power 3 conferences. Sadly, the other two aren't here yet, but Notre Dame joins this conference, and there's some teams that are looking to make that jump from good to elite contenders. Brandon and I grouped these teams together in tiers to make this go a little bit easier on you guys, so it's not just like a listing thing where, we put you to sleep at work. We know you got to stay focused listening to us, but we're going to start with the bottom feeders tier. This is teams that are ranked between 10th and 15th in our predictions. So, Brandon, go ahead and kick this off. And who is your first team you got in this tier?
I'm going to go ahead and start with the worst team in this conference this season. That's going to be Syracuse. Not very high hopes for Syracuse this season. Last year wasn't too hot for them, and I think their schedule is just working too hard against them.
Yeah, I don't have Syracuse as the worst team, but I do have Syracuse as my number 14 team. I have Georgia Tech as the worst team in the league this year.
Okay.
So I'll just group these two together. I think all these teams in this tier are either rebuilding teams or teams that lost a lot of talent that I don't think can be replaced. They have glaring weaknesses across the board. But for Georgia Tech, Brandon, I have them going 0-10. I know that sounds absolutely outrageous. That offense ranks outside the top 100. Both their quarterback and wide receiver positional units are outside the top 110. Their front seven on the defense ranked 117th. Do they have talent? Yeah, Jamar Gibbs comes in at running back. We've covered him on the recruiting update. He gets paired with Jordan Mason, who returns. But that O-line is abysmal. One of the worst. I think it's the worst in the ACC. And when you face D-lines like Pitt, Clemson, Miami, it's going to be a serious problem. So I don't think Georgia Tech's going to do very, very well. So I have them going 0-10. You mentioned Syracuse. They're 14th for me, 1-9 for me. They're only above Georgia Tech because I think their defensive potential is better than Georgia Tech, but their offense is garbage, man. Tommy DeVito, their quarterback, ranked 122nd last year in quarterback ranking according to Pro Football Focus. He is not good under pressure. They do have Andre Sisco at safety. They have Afonso Melifonwu at cornerback. How about that for pronunciation? Your boy's been working. Kingsley Jonathan at defensive end, Latree Kinsley at defensive end. Both will step into huge edge roles. I think the Syracuse team is really talented at certain places. They're a year or two away, and I think because of the all-conference schedule, those easy wins that kind of pad that record are gone. I think 1-9, maybe 2-8 is really their ceiling.
Right, and that's, I have them ranked as my 14th team, so I think we just had that flip-flopped. Like you said, I mean, there's not like a lot of noticeable differences between these two teams. They're both going to do pretty not great this year. So yeah, I wasn't going to spend too much of my energy going into the bottom of the barrel. But no. I'll go ahead and move into 13 for this season. I'm going to have to go with Boston College, and I know that I was really high on Phil Jerkovich for a little while. There, I mean, you heard me say that he could be a breakout player, but I don't think he's going to have enough to actually do that. I've got to have some takes on the show, guys. Don't cut my legs off here. But yeah, I don't have very high hopes for Boston College this season.
Yeah, I have them in the exact same spot, Brandon. Great minds think alike. I got them at 2-8, and they're going to be held back by their defense. It's the opposite of the two teams we talked about just a second ago. Each defensive unit is outside the top 90. A.J. Dillon is gone at running back. David Bailey looks to replace him, but those are huge shoes to fill there. And you said Phil Jerkovich at quarterback. He transferred from Notre Dame. He's taken over the QB1 role. But I have questions, Brandon, because this defense is so bad. I don't trust him to put up 30, 40 points a game where that's what they're going to have to score to win. That's how bad this defense is, in my opinion. And so they might be able to win a few games against some of these lower tier teams. I don't think they're as bad as Georgia Tech or Syracuse, but they're definitely not good enough to be any higher on my list.
Right. No, definitely understand that.
And I'll kick it off at 12 here. We'll kind of snake draft this thing. That way Brandon doesn't always have to lead off. I always feel bad. I always put him on the spot here. But for my number 12 team, I have a team who was ravaged by injuries last year. I have NC State. I have them going 3-7. They got question marks everywhere, man. Their O-line is the only positional unit that ranks in the top 60. Every other one is outside the top 90. Devin Leary at quarterback, he's going to have to show improvement. His accuracy last year was atrocious, and his attack, I guess his ability to attack defenses at all levels of the field, terrible. Brandon, this is the craziest stat I ever read about this kid, or just about a player in general. He ranked worse in a clean pocket than he did when under pressure.
That's nuts. Okay.
So this kid, if you give him too much time to think, will just beat himself. So just don't rush the passer. Just drop everyone back and make this kid make decisions. And, Porter Rooks at wide receiver, he's going to have to take that wide receiver one role. And, he was a highly touted recruit. He was the highest ranked recruit for NC State. They have no targets for this kid either. So Rooks has to take that next step. And listen, if NC State, if healthy, should show it some improvements from last year, but I can't put an unproven team with this many question marks any higher than 3-7.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I actually don't have them next, but they're coming. Don't worry. Next, I'm going to go with Duke. They're Duke. It's Duke football. I understand they've had a couple of good years in the past. I feel like they lost a lot this past season, and they
definitely did.
And they weren't great last season anyway. So I don't know. I just don't have very high hopes for them. It was tough for me right here between NC State and Duke, but I ended up landing on the Blue Devils.
Wow. Okay. Now, I don't have him here. I don't even have them in this tier, but
really?
That's crazy. They're not in this tier. At 11 now, I have Wake Forest. This is tough. Like right here, like these next few teams are tight. I have them also 3-7. I think they have the tiebreaker because they beat they beat NC State, but I have them here because of the loss of Jamie Newman, man. I'm not high on Newman, but I like him a lot more than Sam Hartman. And Hartman ranked 128th in the country, Brandon, in big-time throw rate last season.
Right.
So he's not a huge playmaker. And Sage Serrat, we've talked about him on the podcast, a wide receiver, opted out. That's going to force Donovan Green to step up. He doesn't have a lot of experience. Hartman's inexperienced, and he doesn't have any weapons now. Carlos Basham Jr. at defensive end, Jasheen Davis at defensive end is going to lead a powerful but underrated defensive line. It could cause some problems. They have some pretty good linebackers with experience. They're dynamic. This defense could be a bright spot, but if Hartman can't find any help, then Wake Forest is going to be in trouble. But if somebody steps up, Wake Forest could be sneaky and maybe sneak into the next tier. But for me right now, they have too many losses at key areas, and they're too inexperienced to be any higher than right here.
Yeah. So Zach, I think we got lost in the snake. But I kind of foreshadowed my next team. I had NC State, and I'll just go ahead and skip over that. Sorry to kind of mention that. But then, yeah, my number. Oh shoot, we did get lost in the snake. I think it's my number 11. No, it's my number. Is it my number 10 team? What am I on?
It's number 10.
There we
it's
go.
Number 10.
I really should put numbers on this list. Okay, I have Wake Forest here. So I mean, you said it. Jamie Newman's gone. I couldn't echo that sentiment anymore. I wasn't super high on him, and I don't think that he's really proven himself enough to go to the NFL. But here we are. But yeah, I mean, like you said, they lost a lot. I don't know. I feel like Wake Forest kind of always lands here, though, like toward the upper tier of the bottom of the barrel in the ACC.
Yeah, so that completes Brandon's bottom feeders. I have one more team. I have Virginia as my last team in this bottom feeders category. They're right here, man. This team and the first team in my middle of the road tier, which is the next one, we're right there. I have Virginia going 3-7, Brandon. That's tough. I know it sounds tough. They suffered the most losses in this conference. They lost a lot of starters from an ACC Coastal Division winning team. They're the champions. They have a new quarterback, Keontae Thompson, out of Mississippi State. He's transferred. He's finally eligible. He has a lot of potential. But, Brandon, me and you watched a lot of Mississippi State football. He doesn't really pop off the screen for me. I don't think he does. He does a few things good, but he doesn't do anything elite. And
Right.
that's for me. For you to be in the middle of the road, you got to have somebody who's elite. I don't see that. He does have Terrell Jana, Billy Kemp the fourth. They're huge production targets in which they can turn normal plays into explosive plays. Noah Taylor and Charles Snowden might be two of the best defensive players in the ACC. Their front seven ranks 10th in the country, Brandon. That's really, really strong. The secondary, lots of question marks. They're young. They need time to develop. So this front seven has to carry this entire team early. They're just missing too many key pieces. And I think they're going to be one of these teams that you see a large regression from. And I think they're right on the cusp of this middle tier. But for me, Virginia falls here because I think the teams in this middle of the road group have just a better overall team.
Yeah.
And that wraps up our bottom feeder one, but we have the middle of the road. This is the next tier. It's 5 through 9. These are some teams that could be contenders, but I feel like me and Brandon are kind of iffy on. They have some question marks in key places. So Brandon, your number 9 team for the ACC in the 2020 season.
I'm going to go with Virginia, and I feel like I'm just copying off of your list. I promise you I did my own. I've got Virginia here. They did suffer a lot of key losses, but I don't think that they're going to be scraping the absolute bottom of the barrel. I mean, I don't think that they're in the same classes as the Syracuses and the Boston colleges of the conference. So Georgia Tech, even. I mean, they're kind of a step ahead of them, and I still see them pulling off some not really big games. I still see them pulling off some games this season. So I've got a little bit of faith in them. So I've got them at number 9, and yeah, I guess it's your turn. We really got lost in the snake.
Yeah. Hey, this is complex stuff here. Yeah. Complex stuff here, but
so you're going to do the next 2, and then I'll do.
Yeah.
2. Okay, do that.
Yeah. So my number 9 team is Duke. Brandon mentioned them earlier. I have Duke going 4-6 in the ACC this year. These records are so weird because they only play 10 games, and some of these teams don't have their non-conference set up. So this is just conference records. This is going to be such a huge question mark team for me. I have serious questions about their offensive potential, but their defense is right up there with the best of them, man. I think they're going to be able to steal some games, shock some people. Their rushing attack ranks 126 out of 130. That's really, really bad. Chase Bryce, though, at quarterback, comes in from Clemson. I don't know if he has enough to save this offense completely, but I think he has enough ability to keep them afloat. And Chris Rump, the second defensive end, absolute game changer off the edge. He's ranked first, Brandon, in win rate and pressure rate in the country last year for edge rushers. Michael Carter II, Josh Blackwell have to step up and lock down the back end of the defense. I think they can. Duke could have everything come together and be at the next tier, but for me, their question marks on offense keep them in the middle of the road pack, but they keeps them above the bottom feeder tier. And this is one of the controversial ones, Brandon, I was telling you about. At number 8, I have Florida State.
Really?
I have
Florida
State at 8. They're going to be 4-6. I know that sounds just like, how in the hell is Florida State not going to have a winning record? Well, it's because they can't pick on teams like, who do you want to put, like Florida A&M. They can't schedule those bottom tier teams to get these easy wins. I don't think Florida State's going to be very good this year. I think their offense is something I can't put any trust in at all. They've named James Blackman the starting quarterback again. I am not sold on him in the slightest. He ranked 106 last year in pure passing grade by Pro Football Focus. And Brandon, he was 108th in turnover rate. That is not good. And you say, well, they have Mike Norvell now. They got this new offensive system. Mike Norvell attacks deep middle of the field all the time. This guy cannot throw the ball there. He cannot throw to the out. Like, if you look at his passing heat map, the sidelines, blue. Middle of the field, nothing. This kid cannot throw there, or I have not seen it at least. And, there's no help for Blackman either. The rushing attack and O-line rank outside the top 100 for positional grade rankings right now. Cam Akers gone to the NFL. Joshua Corbin steps in. Brandon, he averaged 0.2 broken tackles on all his carries so far.
Yeah.
He can't make anything happen. As soon as you touch him, that's it. That's where he goes. And in the ACC with these strong front sevens we're going to talk about, not a recipe for success. The reason that they might be a dark horse, they're in this middle of the road, they could finish higher. This defense, man, this defense is elite. I mean, NFL talent all over this defense. They rank 5th in the country in total defense, Brandon. Top 5.
That's nuts, yeah.
But their offense is that bad. And Asante Samuel Jr., cornerback, DJ Matthews at safety, all these guys will be back to make one of the deadly ACC secondaries. Marvin Wilson Jr., he reminds me of this weird combination. I know this is stereotypical because he is a projected top 10 NFL pick. He has like the best of both worlds of Derek Brown and Javon Kinlaw. He looks just like him. He plays just like him. This kid's elite at defensive tackle. And, this team's loaded on the defensive side of the ball, but I don't trust this offense to score over 25 points a game. And when you have offenses like Notre Dame, UNC, Clemson, I don't know if this team's going to have enough firepower on offense to even get to 20 points a game sometimes, and it's going to lose them a lot of close games.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm going to have to disagree with you there. But I'm going to go ahead and move on to my next pick. I've got Virginia Tech here.
Eight? My goodness.
I do.
Oh, my goodness.
I do. Virginia Tech, I don't know. I actually had a really hard time. You're gonna give me an even harder time about this, but I had a hard time choosing between them and Virginia for that number 9 spot. So,
my goodness,
I'm just not very high. It sounds like you wanted Virginia Tech to win the conference. I mean, you got to stop with that. You're kind of selling this a little bit too far.
Virginia Tech almost made my final tier. Holy crap!
That is insane that they almost made the final tier. That should not be allowed. Let's get a hashtag going or something. Let's cancel Zach.
Listen, we are releasing these rankings on our Instagram, so you can you can see them all written out, and you can roast both of us. But man, this is tough for me.
I don't know, Zach. I mean, a lot of people agree with me here. You know me. I don't have my own opinions. I get help from others, and I'm not copying anybody's list. I've already made that abundantly clear. But people aren't very high on Virginia Tech this year. I don't really know what the redeeming quality for you was, but I just didn't see a lot in this team.
Woo! Okay, man. Well, go ahead. Give me your 7th team. Let me guess. You got Clemson?
Yeah, it's Clemson next. No, next I've got Florida State. Florida State, and you know what? You're gonna this top 8, I guess, is going to be very controversial for you. It sounds like you're having a hard time with this. You might have an even harder time because I almost had I'm pretty sure a team that you would find surprising coming up next. But yeah,
I'm going to quit the podcast. I will stop recording right now. If the next team out of your mouth is who I think it is, I'm done. I quit the podcast.
It's not who you think it is. I promise.
Okay.
It's not that absurd. But yeah, Florida State, like you said, I mean, this defense is phenomenal. I mean, I don't think we can say that enough. But James Blackman, I mean, we've hated on him on the podcast. We've hated on him off of the podcast. And as soon as I saw that he was their starting quarterback this year, I don't know what people keep seeing in him. They have more talent than just him, right? He can't be.
I would hope so.
Yeah, he can't be the best quarterback that Florida State can recruit. But here we are. So Florida State, and the thing is, they're rebuilding, and they've been rebuilding for like 5 seasons now, ever since Jameis left. So I don't know when they're going to be rebuilt. Apparently, we're building like a mansion here, like a castle or a pyramid. We're building something big, hopefully for Florida State anyway.
Whew. Okay, number 7. Wow. Your boy has Pitt here. I have them going 6-4.
Oh, you're gonna get crucified.
That's all good. I got stats. I got stats and analytics all for all these picks. But this is another case, man. The defense is elite. I got you. The defensive line, amazing. But this offense is god-awful. This offense could be in the bottom feeder category.
I don't know. They have some redeeming qualities, honestly. I mean, listen, quarterback is not the redeeming quality on this Pitt team, but they have some good talent receiver. Paris Ford.
Paris Ford's a defensive player.
So I mean, I don't care. He can do it all.
I'm talking about straight offense. I mean, because Brandon, Pitt's offense ranks 100th in the country.
Yeah.
Wide receivers, running back, and O-line all rank outside the top 100. Quarterback, where you said that they're really bad, that's actually inside the top 100. That's their redeeming quality. Kenny Pickett.
Kenny Pickett he should be nobody's redeeming quality.
Listen, he showed improvement. I got you. He doesn't lead any explosive offense. Brandon, I talked about James Blackman. Kenny Pickett ranked 101st in the country in big time throw rate.
You got me all wrong here. I'm on the same page with you on Kenny Pickett. Not a
cool.
Kenny Pickett guy.
Yeah, I mean the best grade he has. He's really, really good at making the correct play under pressure. But is he good at anything else? And at skill positions, yeah, Jordan Addison is going to be a key factor for Pickett. But outside of Jordan Addison, I don't see a single player that gets me any bit excited about this Pitt offense. Not a single thing. This Pitt offense is going to be really, really, really bad. And, the defense, I'll get to some bright spots. You're like, okay, well, why aren't they in the bottom feeder if you're this low in their offense? This defense, just like Florida State, man, NFL potential all across the board. You got Cam Bright, Patrick Jones II, devastating pass rushers, and Bright's a linebacker. He's even more elite in coverage. Jalen, I think it's Tyman, if I'm not mistaken, or Twyman, is another elite interior defensive lineman. He's going to demand double teams. You can't stop both him and Jones. I think Pitt's defense could be the best that school's ever seen. That could be the best defense they've had in school history. But until I see some offensive potential, their ceiling is right here at 6-4, right in the middle of the road. And you want to know why? That offense should be in the bottom feeders category. That defense is in the contender tier, so they're right in the middle. Pitt's going to be 6-4. I have them above, Florida State and some of these good teams, but I don't think they can contend for the ACC until they find some offense somewhere. Someone please pray for this offensive line because it's garbage. But I'm going to move on here. Number 6, we're getting to these higher tier teams. I have Miami here.
Oh, you're not going to find me then. You will not. Hey, I thought, look, yeah, we're on the same page, brother.
Most of my rankings stayed the same. I did a collab on Instagram where we pick teams with Central College Football. Go follow their account. I had Miami in the next tier, but as soon as Gregory Rousseau opted out, I can't have them there anymore. That's that big of a loss at defensive end. But De'Aaron King, Quincy Roche will still make this team pretty good, and they can compete. Brandon King was the second highest rated quarterback by Pro Football Focus in passing grade in 2018.
Right.
Plus, Miami brings in new offensive coordinator Rhett Lashley. He was the offensive coordinator when Auburn made the run to the SEC championship under Jarrett Stidham. He was at SMU. Pass heavy, fits King's style perfectly. He has Brevin Jordan at tight end. Huge target there. The O-line is questionable. We saw it last year. But Jalen Rivers and Isaiah Walker Jr., 2 4-star, highly, highly touted recruits, come in and could offer immediate help and depth at a position that Miami did not have last year. The defense is going to hinge on Quincy Roche. Gervin Hall at safety, an incoming top 50 recruit, Avante Williams. We covered him on the podcast before, another safety. All these players are either immediate upgrades in terms of Avante Williams or Quincy Roche, and or players like Hall that have experience to make a serious impact. They know the system. They're going to be tough for any offense to score on. Miami with Rousseau is an ACC title contender, a dark horse playoff threat. But now they'll just be a really good team, middle of the road. And you know what? As tough as we've been on Manny Diaz, it looks like he's finally building a culture and a team that can back up all these Miami fans. And Miami next year and for the next 2-3 years could be a serious, serious threat in this conference. But for right now, have to tailor the expectations and put them at 6th.
Yeah, and I also have them at 6. So I thought you were going to have a fit when I put them at 6.
No.
So
if you had them at 6 with Rousseau, we would have a problem, but not with Rousseau out, because Rousseau is a generational talent at defensive end.
Right, and with what we saw out of Miami this past season, I get it. They have De'Aaron King. There's a lot of question marks there. We didn't see him play most of the last season. We didn't see him play in the spring because there was no spring football. There's really been not a lot leading up to now. I mean, you can't tell me he's not going to be at least a little rusty here, and more rusty than others. He just hasn't had that same that same type of preparation. I mean, I understand it's been very minimal for everyone, but it's been very, very minimal for D'Eriq King. So, I mean, to me, we don't know exactly what we're getting out of Miami, and that's why they're at number 6. And I'll go ahead and move to 5, which I've got Pitt here. And the reason I left off with that for Miami is because at least we know what we're getting with Pitt. We're getting a really, really good defense. We didn't see nearly as many opt-outs from this Pitt defense as we did from Miami. And I think that's kind of what pushes them over the edge here for me. I understand the offense isn't quite there. But like I said, there's a lot of question marks for Miami too. And there's a lot of even more question marks for Florida State, for all the other teams behind Pitt so far anyway. So I've got them at number 5 on my list.
I don't know, man. Do you trust that offense to be a top 5?
I trust that defense. I really do. I mean, if people can't score on you, they can't beat you. Yeah,
no, absolutely. But okay, do you think that defense is good enough to stop it? Okay, so I know we're ranking like teams and how they finish. Who are the top 3 offenses in the ACC? You think going right now in the ACC?
Yeah, you're going to ruin things if you do this.
Okay, well, never mind. We'll get there in a second. But my number 5 team, this is probably my second most controversial because Brandon knows what's about to come next. But
I know.
Virginia Tech's my 5th ranked team.
Yeah, it's nuts.
I have them going 7-3. I think they're the most balanced teams in the conference, Brandon. I mean, every single positional unit outside of defensive line is a top 40 ranked positional unit.
Okay.
And they have 2 true freshmen coming in Alec, Bryant, and Robert Wooten, who were down in Texas. They somehow wound up at Virginia Tech together. Bryant racked up over 20 sacks his final 2 years in high school, and Wooten had 17 sacks of his own in his final 2 years. They're going to step in immediately and offer depth at a position that Virginia Tech really struggled in last year. Yes, Caleb Farley opted out. That's huge. But Jermaine Waller comes back at DB. He allowed a sub 40% catch rate last season. And listen, the reason I'm higher than most on Virginia Tech, I think Hendon Hooker is a better quarterback than Kenny Pickett, a better quarterback right now, because like you said, there's a lot of unknowns with D'Eriq King. I think he could be better than King, and he's definitely better than James Blackman, which is why they jumped those 3 teams for me, Brandon. He graded out as a top 6 quarterback in the ACC, according to Pro Football Focus. Tavion Robinson comes back at wide receiver. He was a true freshman last year. He's going to step into a bigger role. He has a whole season of experience. And Brandon, this is the X factor. Raheem Blackshear comes in. Finally, he transfers away from Rutgers, and he's going to be arguably the best player on this Virginia Tech team. As you know, when you're stuck in the depth of Rutgers, then, I would also want out. He only played in 4 games last year before deciding to transfer in redshirt because who would want to be at Rutgers? Over 1,700 yards receiving and rushing, 12 touchdowns in his 0.3 years at Rutgers on a team that had no quarterback. Blackshear is going to be in the running for ACC Newcomer of the Year. This team has so much potential. It's not tested, and I would like to see more improvement in big games. They should have won that Virginia game to get to the ACC championship last year. They were the better team. They just didn't know how to finish. If things go right for the Hokies, I think they really and truly could be in this next tier called the Contenders. That's how high I am. I think Blackshear and Hooker and all these guys are going to be better than people would imagine.
Okay. I mean, I obviously disagree, but okay.
Listen, guys, one last tier here. The Contender Tier. This is the top 4 teams in the ACC. I always make Brandon start. I feel bad about that. My number 4 team, I think Brandon, we definitely have the same 4 at least. I have Louisville at 4 here. Louisville, I have them going 8-2, Brandon. I know that's an outrageous number to hear. I think they're my sleeper dark horse pick in the ACC, and it starts with that offense. I mean, Brandon, we've talked about this offense before. Mikael Cunningham, Javian Hawkins at running back, Tutu Atwell at wide receiver. Brandon, this offense has a top 12 ranking for returning production at quarterback, running back, and wide receiver. Top 12 in the entire country. And like I already said, we've talked about Cunningham on this podcast. He's one of the most underrated quarterbacks in the country, and I think he could be the ACC Player of the Year if everything goes right. Hawkins, we have already covered. I won't cover him again. Just go back like 2 episodes ago. Atwell, over 1,200 yards receiving last year. Brandon, I don't remember if I said this on the podcast. He actually was Pro Football Focus's top-ranked wide receiver last year over Jamar Chase.
Yeah, we mentioned it. I know we mentioned it.
Yeah, that shows his potential. Rod J. Burns back at linebacker, Anthony Johnson at DB, both will lead this young, but they have a few question marks on defense. I think Louisville has untapped potential. I'm more confident in this team's potential than any of the teams we mentioned. I think their hyper-athletic talent on offensive side of the ball is going to be super important in this conference, and I think things are going to click for Louisville, and they're going to finish 4th at 8-2 in the ACC.
You're not going to like where I'm going here, Zach.
I'm already about to hit the quit recording, and I'm just going to dip. We don't have to release this episode.
I've got North Carolina. I'll say it. I've got North Carolina number 4.
This is such blasphemy, bro. Like, this is absolutely outrageous. Like, I am calling everything you've said into question if you seriously have Louisville over UNC.
I do. I really do. I'm sorry. I do.
There's oh man, I'm about to get us taken off the airwaves. There is no effing way that is the case. I hang on. My bad. I'm being rude. I need to hear your argument because I am dying to hear, because I'm assuming Louisville's probably 3 because
Louisville
there's no way there's no way you have them over Notre Dame.
No.
I need to hear why I need to hear this. So go ahead, because you're going twice. So I need to hear how this is even possible.
Okay, so I'll go ahead and group these 2 in there. I'll go ahead and say Louisville at 4, and I'll have UNC at 3. I'm sorry, other way around. UNC at 4, Louisville at 3. And I'll just do like I'll do my argument for Louisville because it wasn't as much against UNC as it was for Louisville. I'm just going to echo your sentiments here. I mean, JV and Hawkins, to me, I understand that Tutu Atwell had an incredible season last year. But, I mean, the real exclamation point for this offense to me was JV and Hawkins. He started all 13 games this past season, 264 rushes for 1,525 yards. I mean, he averaged 6 yards a carry this past season. He only had 9 rushing touchdowns, but he had 4 receiving touchdowns on top of that. I mean, he just tacks on points, and that was his freshman season. I mean, that was his redshirt freshman season. We don't know what kind of talent this guy can pull out his sophomore year, even his junior year. I mean, he's a very talented running back. And not only that, but Mikael Cunningham. This kid's absolutely, I don't want to say elite, but he has elite potential. I mean, Zach, you already touched on it a lot. I mean, we talked about how he did this past season. He passed for over 2,000 yards last season, and that's in 178 attempts. He had 22 touchdowns and gets only 5 interceptions all season. So, I mean, and he can do it all. I mean, he can do it with his legs too. Not only was he passing the ball that much, he had almost 500 yards rushing this past season, Zach. He had 6 rushing touchdowns alone. So, I mean, this kid's, you just have that duo in the backfield. And I think, in my honest opinion, that's going to bring them over the top of just one sophomore quarterback in Sam Howell for UNC this next season. I think their offense is going to be, miles better than UNC's.
Oh man, I cannot even.
And not even only that. I mean, their offensive line's incredible too. I understand they lost Mekhi Becton, but I mean they have Renato Brown. I mean, filling in that spot right there. Tyler Haycraft. They have the offensive line down as well. So, I mean, who's going to be able to get to this duo?
I'm still shook.
You're not very high, I can see. I mean, that moment of you had to take it all in, huh?
I don't see how, like, you think, okay, let's just go through this. Do you think Mikael Cunningham is better than Sam Howell?
No, I don't. But I think that all of these players combined, I think that the duo of Mikael Cunningham and Javian Hawkins is better than Sam Howell and UNC's running back.
Okay, UNC. I don't want to spoil my argument, but UNC ranks 5th in the country in total offense. Brandon,
Okay. I mean, that was last season. And and even if it wasn't, it was a prediction for this season. I don't know. I see a ton of untapped talent. And I know that's what you see in Sam Howell. I mean, you see a lot of stuff that he's proven. And you see probably a lot more untapped talent. I mean, you see a lot of potential in him. So you're telling me that you don't see potential you don't see potential in a redshirt freshman running back and a sophomore quarterback from last season. I mean, we're going on to sophomore, junior year for these two. I feel like they have a lot to bring to the table.
I don't know, man. I see a lot of it's not untapped potential with Sam Howell. He was arguably a top 3 quarterback last year.
Playing for North Carolina, Zach.
It doesn't matter. It does. They all as
how
a
well
true
did they do last
freshman
year,
in his
since Sam Howell, and you wish that was your name, don't you? No, since Sam Howell was so good last year, how did UNC finish?
They finished, I think it's 8-5. It was either 8-5 or 9-4, one of the two.
That landed them a playoff spot, or where were they?
No, I mean, okay, so he didn't have any help, but he still was second in the ACC. He was 4th in the entire country in passing yards?
It doesn't matter if you don't do anything with that. If you end up 8-5, then what does it matter?
But he did. It doesn't oh my gosh. I don't understand. You're saying the same thing. Joe Burrow in 2018 didn't have as much help as he had the next year. And then once he got some help, they won the national championship. I don't understand.
So go ahead and tell us about that help then, Zach. Go ahead and tell us why you have.
Okay.
Do you even have UNC here? Because I'll fight you.
No, I don't. Number 3, I have Notre Dame.
Oh, stop that right now. I quit. Look, go ahead. I'll be back. You go ahead.
Notre Dame is going to be 8-2, finish 3rd. And, they might not be known for defense, but they're going to have one of the best defenses in the country. They're going to have an experienced quarterback. Brandon, their defense ranks 10th in the country. Their front 7 ranks 11th, secondary top 25. Tariq Bracy, Kyle Hamilton, we've talked about him on the podcast, are going to be the 2 key pieces to the secondary. Darlin Hayes comes back at defensive end. He's going to take on a huge role, left by a few people who left for the NFL. Ian Book is going to be the key, Brandon. He's going to bring a wealth of experience, and he's going to have plenty of help. Can the Fighting Irish stay healthy? They have the number 1 ranked offensive line in the country, Brandon. Going into the season, they have Liam Eichenberg, Tommy Kramer, Robert Hainsey, all return as nationally ranked offensive linemen. Brandon, between these 3 players and all the snaps they played last year, 2 of them got hurt. They allowed 0 sacks between the 3 of them.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
I just got back, by the way. I actually left. I was upset with Zach.
But he has Braden Lindsey at wide receiver, Jordan Johnson at wide receiver. They're going to be explosive targets for Book, which is going to make this team dangerous. I think they have the pieces to compete, but injuries have held this team back in certain spots, especially in recent seasons. But a healthy Notre Dame team is a playoff contender. But can they stay healthy? And Brandon, really and truly, do you trust Ian Book in the biggest spots? That is going to be the biggest question mark for Notre Dame this entire season. I mean, Brandon, we've seen Ian Book play his best when there's no stakes, but we've seen Ian Book collapse in the biggest moments.
Yeah, that's true.
Do you trust him? And that's what this comes down to. And listen, it's good. It might sound crazy, but Sam Howell had one big moment. As a true freshman, was one play from beating Clemson last year. There's only one person in the country, one quarterback in the country that could say that last year, and that was Joe Burrow.
Yeah, he was pretty good.
Yeah, he was pretty good. And guess what? That was in Sam Howell's 4th ever game.
Okay, I mean,
pretty good.
Yeah, pretty good, but there were a lot of things going on that game. It wasn't just Sam Howell's incredible performance, because that's why the game was 28-21.
No, it was 21-20.
Oh, it was 1 point. That's right. They went for 2.
It was 1 point. Yeah, it went for 2 at the end, where Sam Howell led the game-winning drive. He led the game-winning drive, Brandon.
They lost. What do you mean game-winning? He led the game-winning drive.
Okay, or yeah, they put him in that position, but for a true freshman 4 games in, that's outstanding. I don't know how you could take anything away from him. I don't understand. But listen, number 2, I already know who you have, but I'll go ahead since we're doing the stupid snake thing, which was my idea in the first place. But I have North Carolina And Brandon, you're good. Everyone can roast me, whatever. I went through each game. North Carolina and Clemson are going to the ACC championship, both undefeated.
Wrong.
North Carolina's going to go undefeated. Brandon, look at their schedule. The only game that I can possibly see them losing is to Notre Dame, and they get Notre Dame at home.
Okay.
They avoid Clemson. Miami's not going to be the same without, Gregory Rousseau. I mean, yeah, there's some good defenses, but do you trust Kenny Pickett to beat UNC? I don't.
Yeah, not Kenny Pickett specifically, no.
But Brandon, I'll break this down for you. The Tar Heels rank 5th in the entire country in offensive production returning. They rank 44th defensive-wise. But we've talked about this on the podcast. Storm Duck is back. DB, true freshman, started last year, ranked 3rd in the ACC. Yes, amazing name. 3-star freshman, true freshman, got to start last year. He's back. He ranked 3rd by Pro Football Focus in terms of ACC defensive backs. 3rd. He's back every year. And Brandon, this is the key. Tony Grimes reclassifies. He was a 5-star for 2021. We've already broke him down on our podcast where he got clock going 20 miles per hour in less than 4 seconds.
Crazy.
Yeah, 6'1", 185 true freshman. He's coming to shore up that back end of the defense. That was the biggest problem for UNC last year. They bring in Desmond Evans at DN. That's going to be an immediate elite pass rusher for them. And the offense, Brandon, I know I'm going to get roasted for this, but I've said it on Couch Coach Live yesterday. I'm not saying they're going to be the exact replica, but they're going to make a jump like the 2018 LSU or 2019 LSU offense did from 2018. They're going to make that type of leap, elite leap. They're not going to might not put up the same numbers, but they're going to be that much better. Sam Howell is back, Brandon. He put up the 2nd most valuable season for a true freshman quarterback since 2014 last year. Brandon,
right.
2nd in the conference in passing yards behind Trevor Lawrence, 1st in the conference and 4th in the entire country in passing touchdowns, 2nd in the conference behind Trevor Lawrence and 10th in the entire country in passing efficiency. Listen, everyone says I'm too high on this kid, but I don't understand how anybody who watches college football doesn't watch UNC last year and say, this kid's got the it factor. I don't understand. I mean, you put Joe Burrow on that UNC team last year. Yeah, he's going to play really, really well, put up big stats, but he doesn't win the national championship.
Like, come on, man. Just ask him out already. We can do it on the show if you want.
Listen, Daz Newsome's back, wide receiver, number 1 target. He ranked 1st in the entire country in 20 plus yard catches from the slot last season, over 1,000 yards. He was top 10 in catches, yards, receiving touchdowns in the conference. 4.4 speed. Then you talk about running backs. You want to talk about Hawkins at Louisville. That's great. The top 2 leading rushers for UNC are back. Javonte Williams, who we talked about being one of the players to watch in the ACC this year, and Michael Carter comes back to take off the pressure. On defense, Chaz Serrat, 1st team All-ACC selection at linebacker last year. He's back. Don Chapman, true freshman who really graded out as one of the best safeties in the country late last season. He's back. This North Carolina team is the only team in the ACC outside of maybe Notre Dame that can compete with Clemson. I don't see anyone else really being able to do it, and I think North Carolina's offense is the only offense in the ACC that can match the firepower that Clemson has. Okay.
I mean, you said what you said. I'm just glad you didn't have them winning the ACC, so here we are.
Well, I haven't said that yet. We still got to make our official predictions. I mean, this is just ranking what they're going to finish. We still got to make our final official prediction. I never said that.
This is gonna hurt, man. I'm gonna lose my mind. Okay, so okay. Well, obviously I have Notre Dame here at number 2. The main thing being Ian Book is back. I mean, coming off of, we see what he can do. Coming off of a great season this past year, and coming back and having an even more, or I guess an even even more veteran offensive line. I would even venture to say probably the best in the country. Zach already said that, and I would go ahead and say they probably have the best offensive lineman in the country, potential or offensive tackle in the country, in Liam Eichenberg. I mean, this kid is for sure going to be. I would probably say, first round draft pick. Zach, you think? He's incredible, and he's going to be an NFL player for years to come. And I don't know. I think as long as you can protect Ian Book in that pocket, I know he can move outside of that pocket and he can use his legs as well as any other quarterback. But you keep pressure off of him, and he might just do incredible things this upcoming season. And so I'm really high on Notre Dame. Obviously, going into the ACC, we roast the ACC all the time. They're not quite the Pac-12, but we all know everyone's talking about it. So. Going to the ACC, I'm not going to say it's going to be a cakewalk by any means for Notre Dame. I think they've got a lot of challenges this season, but I think that they end up in the conference championship game.
Yeah, I'm not going to argue. Notre Dame could do it. I don't know if I trust Ian Book fully. Brandon, let's go ahead and say this: Clemson's going to finish the top-ranked team in the regular season. I got them 10-0. I'm assuming. Well, I guess also 11-0 since they played the Citadel. Do you think the Citadel can pull that one off?
Maybe.
Brandon, do you want to hear this crazy crap? Brandon, Clemson ranks top 10 in every single positional unit except D-line, where they rank top 25.
Yeah, which is nuts. And it's Clemson, so it's to be expected, but it's still crazy.
And, I think, Brandon, we can say one player's name and everyone's like, okay, yeah, I got you. You picked them, and that's Trevor Lawrence.
Absolutely.
Is there anything more we could say about this kid?
I don't know. I obviously think, I think I'm speaking for a lot of people here when I say that this upcoming season for him is going to be probably much better than this past season. Especially,
and that's crazy.
It is crazy.
He threw for this is his second straight year of throwing. He threw for 3,600 yards and 36 touchdowns, and that's what some people say was falling off.
I know. People were a sophomore slump. Okay. I think we said that in the first three games.
Well, the first 3 games he didn't play great, but down the stretch, I think he rated, second to Joe Burrow in just terms of overall passing grade in the final, 9-10 weeks of the season.
Right.
So Brad, this is a question I wanted to save here. I kind of talked about it yesterday with Couch Coach, but would you rank Lawrence as the greatest college football quarterback?
Of all time or just
yes, of all time?
Oh, that's so tough.
What does he have to do for you this year? Or listen, we know my theory, Brandon, we know you don't agree. Or if he comes back for a senior year, what does he have to do over these next 1 to 2 years to do that?
That's so tough, man. Win another national championship for sure. I think that's something that we're all looking forward to. Not only that, but maybe pass for over 3,500 yards again. I'd like to see a 4,000-yard season. And then, to me, it's kind of cemented, right? I also would like to see this kid win a Heisman, because how do you not win a Heisman if you're Trevor Lawrence?
Okay, so I said yesterday on the podcast, I said that they're going to give it to him just for a lifetime achievement award. We saw Grant Delpit this year get the Thorpe Award for no apparent reason. He wasn't even the best DB on his own team.
Right.
And it was just a lifetime achievement award, and I think that's what they're going to do for Trevor Lawrence. Would we look at Tim Tebow the same if he didn't win a Heisman?
We would look at him differently even if he didn't win the Heisman when he won it. He was the first sophomore to ever win it. Yeah,
that's true. But, Lawrence is right there, man. I was looking at this yesterday. Brandon, he's 29-1 in his college career.
That's true, yeah.
And that's after only losing 1 game in high school, which was a divisional playoff game his sophomore year.
Right.
He took his high school on a 43-game win streak. And, you could say he shrank at LSU. You could say that Clemson's loaded. But this is, if he wins the national championship this year, Brandon, he will officially be 43-1 in his college football career with 2 natties and 3 natty appearances and, whatever awards he might win. But even without the Heisman, 43-1 at the highest level in the playoff era, I don't think we would ever see that again. That is, come on, man. Trevor Lawrence himself obliterated the ACC's perception as a conference. How many good teams have been in the ACC? Was Virginia trash last year? they competed with Florida in the Orange Bowl. In Virginia, like going into the ACC championship, the spread was like 30.
Yeah, that's true.
Like, come on. But guys, with Clemson, I mean, Brandon, you're probably sick of this. Travis Etienne's coming back. 2 straight years for rushing over 1,600 yards. They have Joe Nada at wide receiver, Amari Rodgers at wide receiver. On defense, Mike Jones Jr. steps in for Isaiah Simmons. Nolan Turner's back at safety. Xavier Thomas at defensive end. They have 3 5-stars, Brian Barisi at defensive tackle, Miles Murphy defensive end, and Trenton Simpson at linebacker. I mean, what more? Brandon, I want to ask, like, I was researching for the segment. Did you know Trenton Simpson played linebacker and running back last year? And he played middle linebacker. He had 20 sacks last year and averaged 8 yards per carry as a running back.
That's nuts.
Get out of here. But guys, so for my championship picks, I have UNC against Clemson. Brandon has Clemson versus Notre Dame. Brandon, right here, right now, who is your pick to win the ACC?
Clemson. It's not even close.
How bad do you think they beat Notre Dame again? Because they have to play in the season as well. How bad do they beat Notre Dame?
Oh, specifically in the championship game, I could see it being. Let's go with 40-28.
Oh, okay. I like that. I have Clemson over UNC. They don't play in the season, so this would be their first matchup of the year. I think, honestly, I would probably have Clemson 38 to like 27, something like that. If I had to guess right now. But yeah, Clemson wins the ACC by far and away. And, just a spoiler, if I said this yesterday, I don't know how you feel about it. If Dabo Swinney doesn't win a national championship this year, that's a huge indictment on him.
Yeah. Well, how so?
Because you have arguably the greatest quarterback of all time. You have arguably I would say Travis Etienne could be the second best running back behind Chuba Hubbard right now. Mm-hmm. You have so much talent on the defensive line: Xavier Thomas, Brian Barisi, Miles Murphy. You have Nolan Turner on the back end of the secondary, Amari Rodgers. You have Joseph Ngata. Your offensive line is the top 8 offensive line in the country, and you can't win the national championship.
Well, you didn't even mention that Travis Etienne's probably top 5 wide receiver.
Yes,
in college football.
That's what I was saying. Like, you're telling me that you can't win the national championship. Like, how do I trust you to win with anything else? Like, right. There's no way that there's not even a team really and truly. Like, we'll break down some good teams. Is there really even a team that you look at right now, Brandon, that could even match up well with Clemson on paper?
Not really. I mean, well, obviously we'll get to more predictions down the road, but no, not really.
Okay. I like this. You're not a betting guy because you don't bet on games, but
who bets? Not me.
We like analyzing the spread here. Is there a team in the country that you would give Clemson anything less than a 10-point spread?
Oh, that I would give them less than a 10-point spread, or that I think that bookmakers will give them less than
if you were setting the spread.
Oh, that's so tough. No, probably not. I wouldn't know. I wouldn't trust that. If I'm the bookmaker, if I'm paying out whenever Clemson whoops whoever, I'm not giving them anything less than 10.
Oh, okay. I feel that. But listen, guys, we have rambled about this forever. This episode has been outrageous, but we're just, we're going to end this here. We're not even going to make this like a for real segment. We have a huge game tonight, BYU-Navy. Brandon, you're picking why right here, right now, and we'll just end this episode with this.
That's tough. I mean, I think it's going to be a good game, honestly. I already said it about Army, but I guess I'll say it about Navy. They don't have Malcolm Perry this season, so man, I think I'm still going to go with Navy. I don't think BYU is very good. I think it'll be a pretty close game, like maybe within a touchdown, but I'm going to have to go with Navy in this one. Triple option, it's deadly.
That's true. The spread is even, Brandon.
Yeah,
which is insane spread. I'm going to go the opposite way here. I'm going to go BYU here. I think Zach Wilson is back. He's healthy. I think he's going to tear apart this Navy back end of this Navy defense. I love, I love these service schools. I love the offenses that they run. They're so fun to watch. But I think Malcolm Perry is such a big loss. And for a new starting quarterback to have to face a BYU team that we saw beat USC last year. I mean, this team wasn't scrubs, and Zach Wilson got hurt. They had a lot of things go wrong. I have BYU here. I have BYU by 3 points over Navy tonight on ESPN at 7 o'clock Central, I believe. So make sure to tune in for that. But guys, we're going to end it here. We gave you, what is it, almost an hour and a half of college football content here for your Monday. So hopefully you get through this entire episode. But our ACC predictions are done. More episodes coming later this week. We got predictions to make about the other two big Power 5 conferences. I know a lot of you guys are SEC fans. Y'all are looking forward to that. Hang tight. We'll get there. But I hope you guys enjoy college football as much as we did this weekend. Instagram at @_Bluebloods, Facebook at the Bluebloods Pod, Twitter at the __Bluebloods, the website, thebluebloodspod.com. You can find all our stuff there. Find us on YouTube. You can catch the Audible that we streamed last week, the live stream of it. We appreciate all the support, guys. I can't believe that we've been doing this for over a year. This is the first episode of season 2, so you guys made it with us. We can't believe we're at season 2, but keep subscribing, keep tuning in. We'll keep dropping episodes. That's how that goes. But for right now, we out.